Hello, I'm Ethan, and today I'm reviewing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Now, you may ask, Ethan, why did you not review this back when it came out around November? The answer is Death Stranding. I was playing Death Stranding constantly that month. I hadn't gotten around to this. But I did about a week or two ago, and I absolutely loved it. So a lot of my friends told me don't play on the hardest difficulty because, well, it's really hard. They had a lot of struggle with it. So I said screw that and played it on the hardest difficulty. Now the only reason I mention this is because there is actually no reward for it, so the only thing I get from it is mentioning it constantly. That being said, it was a lot of fun to play on that heavy difficulty. I've never played the Dark Souls games, but I have read it's very similar. The combat was a lot of fun, a lot of dodging, rolling. The lightsaber fighting was a lot of fun, and overall, the combat system was great. It was a bit on the simpler side, but I think it works fine how it was. There weren't a lot of stats to keep track of. This isn't an RPG. This is more of an action adventure kind of game. But there was a skill tree. You would earn XP as you defeated enemies, as video games do, and you'd use this XP to unlock new force powers. Greater force push, have more health, throw your lightsaber. A lot of fun abilities that really helped change the flow of combat and sort of change how you play based on how many you unlock. You play as Jedi Cal Kestis. He is a survivor of Order 66. This game takes place, I think, about 5 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith. So, after surviving Order 66, Cal has been undercover on a scrapping planet, just scrapping old Republic ships for the Empire. Which is really cool to see. You see crashed Venator starships, some ARC 170s from the prequel era. It's really cool to see those again. So one day while working, an accident happens and Cal is forced to use the Force as a means to rescue his friend. Because of this, some of the Inquisitors are alerted. The Inquisitors are a group of Sith that their active goal is to hunt down and kill any remaining Jedi. Now, this alerts specifically the second and ninth sister, who you see throughout the game. So Cal survives his encounter with the second sister by escaping with an ex-Jedi who has come to rescue them. Now, this ex-Jedi, her name is Seer. I'll put her on the screen here. She is part of a crew called the Mantis. Seer. She is on a mission to find a Jedi holocron that contains the list of all sorts of Force-sensitive children all around the galaxy. So, with the help of Cal, they are sent out to find the holocron, going from various planet to planet, tomb to tomb, in order to find it. So, I'm fine with this plot device, but it's not the most complex thing. I mean, they're just running to one place so they can learn the location of another thing, so they can find a location of something. A few incidents, setbacks happen around the story, but it's nothing to write home about. And actually, I didn't really like the ending. I'm going to pause a little bit for spoilers. He just destroys the holocron at the end, and I think that's kind of dumb. I mean, they make reasoning for it, but when that happens, you just kind of think, well, this whole game was in vain. But it was a really fun game, like I mentioned, with all the combat system. But it's not without its flaws. So, first off, it looks great, but that comes at a price. I had to switch down to performance mode, which cuts out 4K and instead runs at 1080p 60 frames per second, about 10% of the time. The rest of the time, there are constant frame drops. Now, I can take it down to 30, but I mean, there were some points where the game got really choppy. There were a lot of times where I would walk to an area, it would just stop, freeze the game for a second, and wait to load in more of the area. I could often see the game loading the world, I would see objects popping into existence. There was one fight I encountered in which the enemy, I could almost run through the entire thing before the enemies would spawn in. Not because the enemies had a delayed spawn, but because the game was struggling to load the enemies. I fell through the world multiple times, as you see on the screen right now, some of which, this clip I believe is all in quick succession on the same planet. I was just trying to get down to the lower area, which, by the way, is a complete maze. I really didn't like the level layout of that area. And it happened throughout the game. There was another time on the planet Zepho where I just fell through, and it was so bad that I had to completely restart the game. It crashed a few times, which is always a problem, and frankly, I can look past this on most instances, except for one. The loading times are atrocious. So I'm playing on the hardest difficulty, and it's no cakewalk. You know, I'm dying constantly, and when you die, you have to go through what is about probably a 1 to 2 minute long respawn screen, and God, it was awful. It's just unacceptable in a 2019 game. You shouldn't have to spend so much time loading. Now, I know we're nearing the end of the PlayStation 4, Xbox One life cycle, but I still think that the game shouldn't be that advanced to where it takes the system a long time to catch up. I'm using a PlayStation 4 Pro. I should be able to just get through it like that. Maybe they made it specifically in mind for the next generation, but I doubt it. Now that I'm done talking about the glitches, I do want to talk about how much I love the lore and the world building. I'm a big fan of Star Wars, and any sort of new planets, new details, new plants, well, maybe not the plants, new creatures, is just really fascinating to me. I spent so long reading all the data logs you can find, and there are a lot of them. 100%ing all that was a bit of work. So yeah, reading through all the data logs was very interesting, and the score fit in really well with other Star Wars stuff. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's a Star Wars-y soundtrack. It really fits in well with what you're expecting to hear from Star Wars, and I like that. It was a good touch. You can also customize your lightsaber, and there are so many combinations. You find the lightsaber parts throughout the world, hidden in chests. You also find ponchos for your character, skins for your droid, and skins for your ship. But the lightsabers parts, that's really what I was interested in. I actually did the math on this. Now, a lightsaber consists of a blade color, an emitter, a switch, a sleeve, a second switch if you have the double blade, and a second emitter if you have a double blade, and the lightsaber material. Of those, there are 8 colors, 8 emitters, 24 materials, 14 sleeves, 14 switches, another 14 switches, and another 8 switches. Now, doing all the math, that's about 33,718,272 possible lightsaber combinations. I just think that's awesome. You will probably not have the same lightsaber as another person. Up on the screen for the past 30 seconds or so, I've actually been showing all the different lightsaber base combinations. So, you know, you get all the parts of a certain series, and that's what each lightsaber is. And if you're interested, here's my lightsaber that I made. Just showing off, because I really like the game. I really like talking about it, and it was just a great experience overall. If it were glitchless, if it were a perfect running game, I'd give it about a 9.5 out of 10. Like I said, some of those worlds were mazes. I can put that aside, but it's still a flaw. However, with glitches, I think I'd have to get it like a 7.5 out of 10. It was just really bad. Really, it got tough to play at some points. But don't let that deter you. I say push through the glitches and experience this game regardless. It's an absolute blast to play. I really like Cal as a character. He interacts, his droid is great too. They interact well together. It's a lot of fun, and probably the best Star Wars game in the last 5 years or so. See ya.